The rain had been falling since dawn, soft and persistent, turning the garden outside into a blur of silver and green. Inside, the air felt heavier, quieter than usual. She sat on the edge of the couch, her knees drawn close, wrapped in an oversized sweater that still carried a faint trace of someone else's cologne. The ticking of the clock echoed in the background, every second louder than the last, as if reminding her of the distance that had quietly grown between her and the man she once believed she fully knew. The house had grown colder with time, not because of the weather, but because the warmth of affection had slowly drained away, replaced by long silences and mechanical gestures. The dinners had become wordless, the laughter absent, and the bed a place of separation rather than closeness. She had tried to fill that emptiness with routine, making coffee, folding laundry, scrolling through old pictures, but the ache lingered, dull yet constant, reminding her that something vital was missing. When he arrived that evening, he didn't knock. He never needed to. There was a familiarity between them that existed without words, a connection built on stolen glances and conversations that lingered longer than they should. His presence felt like a wave breaking through still water, unsettling but alive. He looked at her in a way she hadn't been looked at in years, not as someone expected to endure, but as someone seen. Her heart quickened, that quiet, trembling pulse that betrayed the storm she carried inside. The lamp beside the couch cast a warm amber glow over the room, softening everything, blurring the edges of right and wrong until they were indistinguishable. He stepped closer, his shadow merging with hers on the wall, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Silence stretched, heavy, electric, filled with everything they weren't supposed to say. She felt his hand brush against hers, a small, almost hesitant touch that sent a shiver through her. The world outside faded, the rain, the ticking clock, even the air seemed to still around them. He reached out, fingers trembling slightly, and shifted her legs gently, as if seeking permission, as if asking whether she wanted to stay lost in the illusion they were building together. Her breath hitched, the sound barely escaping her throat. The weight of his touch wasn't demanding. It was careful, deliberate, reverent even. It carried warmth she hadn't felt in so long, warmth that made her remember what it was like to be wanted, to be held as if she mattered beyond duty or obligation. She didn't pull away, though her mind screamed she should. There was a tenderness in that moment, tangled with guilt and yearning, a softness that felt dangerously close to love. The air between them crackled, a fragile balance of need and restraint, both knowing the next heartbeat could change everything yet unable to step back from it. Her heartbeat wouldn't slow down. It thudded hard against her ribs, each pulse echoing louder in her ears as he sat down beside her. The faint scent of rain clung to his shirt, mixed with something warm and familiar, that scent she had secretly memorized from the first time he brushed past her weeks ago. She could feel the heat radiating from his skin, even though there was still space between them. That small distance felt unbearable, almost cruel. She tried to distract herself, staring at the steam curling up from the half-finished cup of tea on the table, but her thoughts kept circling back to the way he looked at her, the kind of gaze that saw through every pretense, every lie she told herself about being fine, about not needing more than what she already had. His eyes lingered on her face, not with hunger but with a quiet ache, as though he was afraid that if he looked away, she'd disappear. The sound of thunder rumbled softly outside, and she flinched, but he didn't move away. His hand rested on her knee, not possessive, not forceful, just there grounding her, steadying the whirlwind inside her chest. For a long moment, they said nothing. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was full of unsaid words, of apologies they'd never voice and desires they couldn't justify. Her breath grew shallow, trembling with every inhale, every exhale. She told herself it was wrong to feel this comfort, this safety in someone else's touch, but the truth was, she had forgotten what it meant to be felt this deeply. His thumb brushed her skin lightly, tracing invisible circles, a wordless question in the simplest gesture. Her eyes drifted to the window, to the reflection of the two of them framed in the golden light. It looked like a memory already something fleeting, something doomed to fade, yet painfully beautiful in its impermanence. His voice broke the silence, soft and uncertain. He said her name like a confession, his tone trembling just enough to make her heart ache. When she turned to face him, she saw the same confusion mirrored in his expression, that tug of war between what they should do and what they desperately wanted to feel. He moved closer, slow, deliberate, as if giving her every chance to step away. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned in, not because of impulse, but because, for the first time in years, she felt alive enough to do so. The room seemed smaller now, the air thicker, their breathing the only sound that filled the space. When his fingers brushed a strand of hair from her face, she closed her eyes. The touch wasn't about desire, it was about longing, about two broken hearts finding a moment of stillness in the chaos of their own lives. Her lips parted slightly, not in invitation, but in surrender to the gravity pulling them closer, and when his hand gently shifted her legs again, she didn't resist. It was a moment suspended in time, fragile, trembling, utterly human. The room had fallen into a silence so deep that it felt like the world outside had ceased to exist. The only sound left was the rhythm of their breathing, uneven, trembling, mingling in the charged air between them. His touch lingered, soft at first, then hesitant, as though he was fighting against something larger than himself. She could feel the warmth of his hand, the way it rested against her, not in possession but in reverence. Her heart pounded harder, and for a moment she forgot to breathe. Everything around them seemed to dissolve, the walls, the clock, the rain, leaving only this fragile, impossible moment that neither of them knew how to stop. Her mind screamed for distance, but her body betrayed her, leaning into the comfort she hadn't felt in years. There was something sacred about the way he looked at her, like he was memorizing her without words, holding every fragment of her brokenness as if it were something beautiful. She closed her eyes, letting the flood of memories wash over her nights spent alone in a cold bed, mornings filled with silence, days that blurred together in a fog of routine. Every moment of neglect, every unspoken ache, every quiet tear seemed to gather at once, pressing against her chest until it became too heavy to bear. His presence felt like light breaking through that darkness, but even that light carried its own shadow. She could taste the guilt at the back of her throat, bitter and familiar, yet somehow it didn't stop her. His hand slid upward, steady, careful, and when he lifted her legs again, it was with a gentleness that spoke more of tenderness than desire. She felt the strength in his touch, not as something that claimed her, but as something that understood her, the kind of understanding that makes you feel both seen and undone at once. The air grew warmer, thicker, and her pulse synced with his. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Their silence had its own language, one of longing, confusion, and fragile connection. She felt a tear slip down her cheek, surprising even herself. It wasn't sadness exactly, nor joy. It was something in between, something that only comes when you realize how much you've been starving for affection, and how close you are to tasting it again. He reached up and brushed it away, his thumb lingering for just a second too long, eyes dark with the weight of everything unspoken. Her breath trembled as she met his gaze, the kind of look that unravels you slowly from the inside out. Outside, the storm had quieted. The last drops of rain tapped softly against the window, and the world began to move again. But inside, Time still stood still. Every heartbeat, every breath felt suspended in that fragile stillness, two souls caught between the comfort of connection and the edge of something they couldn't name. She knew that when morning came, this moment would live only in memory, but for now it was real, and in its quiet, forbidden warmth, she finally remembered what it meant to feel alive.